Last time I specifically told you all that I didn't like how I had hats on in my previous podcasts, didn't wear any jewelry, so hey, I actually did today. I was planning on coming here and doing something different. I wasn't intending on making a podcast today, but I was going to make a music video for my new song coming out. It's a Hector Lavoe and Willie Colon cover, Ah o No. It's very fun, singing Spanish. I did that once with Estrellas in '99, but beyond that, I haven't done too much Spanish work, and I'm not saying I'm going to necessarily, but I felt compelled to cover this one. It's fun. I love it. I was going to film the video for that today because I want to put a video out. I think it'd be cool. That being said, I did not, in fact, film a video of it today, and the reason is I don't have enough lighting. I want more lighting around here. I mean, I have lighting right now, obviously. You can see my gorgeous face well lit by the lights in front of me that are blinding me. But I've decided that I need a little bit more lighting for the video, even though it's probably just a green screen. You know, don't really have any Puerto Rican looking sunsets over here, i.e. beaches and things like that in Michigan, especially not in April. It's not even April yet, in fact. What do you want from me? First things first, I gotta acknowledge something that I said last time that was inaccurate. I said that my Facebook page is probably just at Don Mastro. The ironic and funny thing about all this is my YouTube is the one that's at Don Mastro. So you're already watching me here. Everything else is at the Don Mastro. You know, there's some imposters online, some real assholes. I'll probably get them whacked when I have enough money. It'd be nice, you know, knock them off real quick. But people who go by the name Don Mastro, that's not good. I ain't cutting it for me. You watch yourself. Your days are limited. Your days are limited because I need your online usernames. I'm just kidding. Actually, I like the Don Mastro because it implies that I am the only one. I am the Don Mastro. So don't worry, Don Mastros. You're not going to get whacked. Not yet. Maybe we could meet sometime. I don't know. Now we're becoming friends. See how quickly this happens? Hey. So now that we've settled that inaccuracy, which was really bothering me, I wanted to know which social media it was exactly, and it happens to be my YouTube. So you're already here. Everything else is the Don Mastro, me. Still got my Playboys over here, still rock hard as always. Hey, you ever think about memories? I mean, you ever just think about the good times and imagine the past? It's really crazy when you think about it, that we were just living life and it just continues. I was actually just discussing this today. Me personally, sometimes I feel I don't have imposter syndrome for much, but I feel like one imposter syndrome thing is my actual character and history defined, because a lot of people that I knew in the past, you know, my best friends from different ages, from when I was, you know, in elementary, middle school, high school, college, people like that. I've had very meaningful relationships with people and very deep relationships with people, but they've all been transient. I mean, they all disappear eventually. And when I say eventually, I mean they run their course for about a couple of years. But the thing about it is I can't sit here and say, you know, I don't consider myself a toxic person, and I'm not here to trash anybody either, because what I'm about to say is I can't name for you any event in any of these situations where it was like, oh yeah, that was the end of it, we had a falling out. There was never any falling outs. It's just like time moves on. So that's what's so peculiar to me, is that, you know, I don't have contact with any of these people. I'm not friends with any of them on Facebook, but I've spent so much significant time with different people over the years, and there's never been any falling outs or anything. It's just drift apart after, you know, you leave middle school. I went to a private high school, so you leave middle school for high school, don't talk for a few years. I mean, you talk, you still hang out sometimes, but, you know, then by the time you're going to college, and then the same thing happens with high school. High school, you know, you go off to college into a different state. A lot of guys that I knew, they maintain the same friendships, and I still see them as crazy. Still see them going to each other's weddings and all these, you know, baby showers and stuff. But they just did the same thing. They went to the same, even though I went to a private school, I started off in public. They started off, you know, private school. So had the same private school with their friends, moved it up to high school, same private school, and go to the same college after all that time. And in some respects, I mean, that does seem beneficial, and really like a good consolation probably is having your friends that have known you your entire life, as you get older. Me, on the other hand, I'm more or less pondering my fascination behind this, phenomena. I'm not necessarily distraught or downtrodden by any means, but it is fascinating to me that I've had so many different relationships and I don't even have any contact or communication with these people, and not for any specific reason, just life moving on. I think COVID did a lot to people, but I'd say that this was all definitely pre-COVID, and COVID certainly didn't help, but just moving on in life. I went to a different state for college, moved back. Everybody that I met in college was from a different state. So it's just odd to me, but hey, I've had a lot of experiences. I love the experiences I've had. I always think about how awesome it is that I got to live so many different lives in such a short amount of time in my life, from being a geek and a nerd when I was younger to going to high school and still being picked on and actually bullied my first 2 years. Then a big surprise, joined the football team. People find out I'm a little bit funny, not getting bullied anymore. What do you think about that? Anyway, I do digress about that one. Moved on, was able to essentially recruit myself to play college ball and network into that position of being a punter on a college team. As crazy as that sounds, but my high school certainly didn't help me out with that whatsoever. They had phenomenal athletes that went to go play all over the place, but they weren't too concerned with me, concerned the fact that they were a very esteemed program, and I joined my junior year, which in itself is fascinating to me, but I started playing football when I was a junior in high school. These kids have been playing their whole life, and I decided I was going to punt, so I reckon that's why I was able to get on the team so easily, considering the fact that it was a state champion caliber team every single year and still is a national powerhouse. Regardless, I know I wasn't well liked or respected specifically by the coaches because my peers more or less didn't give a shit. But the coaches definitely played politics. So I just had to train myself and recruit myself to colleges, make highlight videos and show what I could do. And it's actually funny the way that I wound up playing for the school I did, which was Tiffin University in Ohio. I was training at Barwis Methods. You might remember Barwis Methods was, or some deviation of his name. It was a show on Discovery Channel in 2012, probably 2013. But before that, I trained at Barwis Methods, which is where a lot of athletes, professional athletes, train. I was blessed enough to be able to train there when they first opened, so it was before it was super exclusive and super expensive. Really a fun time, definitely helped me in my journey, and it was a main factor in my journey, and I'll get there. So I trained there, a lot of crazy people, you got Dan Moses as a trainer and Tank Dog and all these different people that you probably saw on the show, Mike Barwis himself, and then you'd have the pros in there, Matt Hunwick was on Colorado Avalanche, Larry Foote, football player for Pittsburgh Steelers, but there was a guy in there who would train as well, who did go to my high school, graduated, was an alumni about 4 years prior to me. I think he graduated with my cousin. His name was Scott, and he played for Michigan. He played for Michigan Wolverines. So I see him one day, I'm punting into a net, I would break ceiling tiles sometimes at Barwis Methods. I always felt terrible, but hey, sometimes I completely missed, and I missed the net when I would be punting in there, and I hit a ceiling tile. What do you want from me? Whatever. So Scott was in there one day, and I see him, and I had met him before a couple times, so I say, hey, Scott, how you doing? I'd met him at punting and kicking camps. So we make small talk. I said, yeah, I'm just looking for a place to play next year. I'm trying to play in college, but if not, I'll probably go to Eastern. He said, let me ask my special teams coach when I played at Michigan. He just went to a school in Ohio where he's becoming a strength and conditioning trainer down there. Maybe he'll take you. So he calls him up, lo and behold, a lot of calls back and forth and visit, and I was able to go play for a Division II school in Ohio, which was not a bad team, and it was not a bad league. It was the best league that you could play in if you're in Division II, which is, well, at that point, they changed since then, but at that point it was the GLIAC. So Michigan teams, you had Ferris State, Wayne State, Grand Valley State, University of Hillsdale, Saginaw Valley State, a lot of really quality D2 teams. And then Ohio, you had very good ones also, Ashland, Findlay, Ohio Dominican, Notre Dame Prep, I think had just joined the league down there. There's probably a couple other that I'm forgetting at this point in time, but it was not a bad league to be a part of. It wasn't a bad place. Honestly, it was phenomenal. And the reason that I got on such a tangent here, talking about my history, is just, like I said, I mean, from just a span of 10 years, I went from being a complete bullied loser, picked on, all that, to being a jock, being a comedian, being a funny guy, going to college, being a sex symbol. As funny as that sounds, I used to look a lot prettier when I was younger. I played football, and then I quit football 2 years in at Tiffin to join the music department there. So I became a rock star there too. So the way that happened was my sophomore year at Tiffin, I roomed with some guys I knew liked to play guitar, and some down the hall who also liked to play guitar on the team, mind you. And they like pop punk, they would always be playing Counterparts and The Story So Far, artists like that. Not necessarily my thing, but I was able to jam to it, have a good time. So my sophomore year, I bring my little Squire bass to school so I can play with them. Because I'm not expecting to be some guitar virtuoso. I brought my guitar as well, but I really couldn't jam on that. The bass was what I could jam on. So I found myself increasingly getting back from, lifting workouts, all these, football events, and just coming straight to the dorm, not showering, not doing anything, just sitting right down on my bed and playing bass until nighttime. And, quick shower, homework, go to bed. Good thing I was pretty smart and the school was very easy, but not for everybody, so I don't know how unbiased that statement truly is. Regardless, I found that I just couldn't sit the thing down. That was my passion to me. I had already decided that I wanted to do music, but something else happened. We had a quarterback come in my sophomore year, when the season was going on, well before I retired, left all my years of eligibility. I can go back if I want to. We had this quarterback transfer in. He did the whole circuit, a lot of JUCO schools, a lot of prep, D3, D2. Wound up here from New York. I don't know where he was before that. I think he was from Ohio, so he was all over the place. But when he got there, he did his thing for the season, and then he kind of fell off the football train as well. He knew that I played bass a little bit from everybody else because everybody played guitar, but I was the only one playing bass. Who wants to play bass? Musicians, a lot of people don't want to play bass. So a bunch of football players who are bringing an instrument to school to fuck around with, it's not a bass, it's a guitar. Bass is scarce, I guess. Not a lot of people he knew played it. So he hits me up one February day, my sophomore year still, and says, hey, I got this indie folk band out here in Grand Rapids. I don't know if you know this, but I'm a literary major. I love to write. I've always been doing this. And we want to record our first EP. In fact, we are recording our first EP. I know you play bass. Would you want to try playing bass on these tracks? I said, of course, I'd love to try that. So he sends me the tracks, the raw, files from what they're doing at the studio at the time. And I love it. I've always loved trying to put myself into anything I do. So when I wrote the bass lines for these Watching for Foxes songs, and you can still hear them, it's exactly what I wrote. It's definitely not approached from a bass player's perspective, especially now that I've played bass for over 10 years. It's definitely not from a bass player's perspective, but I was still fitting in the harmonies and still fitting in these random little licks and weird things that just added the right dissonance and sometimes harmonization. Whatever it was just always necessary in the tracks. I wrote these little parts, took it to Grand Rapids one day. It was a weekday because I remember I skipped school that day. I skipped my classes. I remember my friends texting me, because it was a school day. I remember my friends texting me saying, "What are you doing, dropping out?" I was still playing football at the time too. Mind you, I had probably a 3.8, 3.9 at the time. That's what I graduated with, and that basically stemmed from my freshman year, set the mark. Actually raised the GPA of the football team, along with the other smart guys on the team. I was all GLIAC my sophomore year because of my grades. Yeah, missing class was a bad thing, but I wouldn't be the one getting punished for it. No one really said anything to me on, any of the coaches. They knew what I was capable of, so once they knew that, they knew that they didn't have to reprimand me. They were focused on, the rest of the guys, the important, integral aspects of the team who were also dog shit in the classroom. I skipped a day, went over to Grand Rapids. Amberlit Audio, I believe, was the studio that we used. I don't even know if it's still there, but I go in there, I meet these guys for the first time other than Joey, which is the name of the guy, and I go in, they already have the tracks recorded, just like they sent me. It was awesome because it was exactly what I had practiced to, and I laid down my parts. Now I'm very much an amateur still, but I still don't know any technique or form. I'm just playing what I feel is right, and it sounds good. Seriously, go listen. Watching for Foxes, The Watchmen, their first album. Go listen to all those bass parts. Go listen to all those songs. In my opinion, it was the best iteration of the band. That's personally my opinion. It might be controversial, but I personally think that as the band progressed, and I left the band after doing that, I felt like I wanted to make rock. I was very inspired by Led Zeppelin, but that's a story for another day. It just became a little bit too folky for me and a little bit too in-depth with different musicians. Really dropped the standard setup, which I'm all for, Arcade Fire and all this, shit, Hosier and all that. I love big sounds, but I don't know. I mean, it was, drop the bass, drop the drums, just have a guitar and a cajon and a cello and, a flute. It's pretty, but it's weird. I mean, not weird, but knowing what the band was capable of and what was being made on that first album, you tell me personally, go listen to all the albums. I just love the sound of that first album a little bit more. As a standalone work, I love that album. Absolutely incredible album. Not just because I'm on it, just beautiful lyricism, beautiful lyrics, great music. Go back to school after that. Got to post on my Instagram that I was recording in the studio, try and impress all the poon. What do you want from me, okay? College kid. Still on the football team, but I'm like done with this shit. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to be part of this anymore. I've played my football. I don't want to deal with all the rules and having to be on a schedule all the time. Plus, I adore music. So I went in to try out for the music department. I made an appointment and I said I'd like to potentially transition from football to music. And back then I used to play bass with my thumb, So obviously, you play bass with your fingers. You can play with 4, 3, 2, whatever. Even if you play with one, they'd probably say it's better than playing with your thumb. There's plenty of players who do play with their thumb, but I guess if you're trying out for an actual scholarship position, they probably want to know that you're adequate and proficient, in fact, in the actual technique. So I don't blame them for essentially laughing me out of the building when I went to try out, and I played a Killers tune, and I just played, Killers. It's quarter notes, ba 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 ba, or eighth notes. Not simple stuff, just very steady, very straightforward. They didn't laugh me out, but they were very much like, okay, well, you can, try and do something for us, and we'll see what happens. It wasn't enthusiastic. They were going to give me a shot, let me play. In fact, I did at the end of my sophomore year play in a band for the music department, and that's where I really put in the work, beginning of the work, to really progress as a bass player. But that was a little trial and error thing. I was very upset with my representation of myself at that point in time and my skill on an instrument that I was very fond of. I went home that summer with a ton of passion after being in the little band that it was a little side project. It was a random group that stemmed off from the music department. He said, hey, we could use a bass player if you want to sit in there and maybe work on your chops a bit. So I was able to do that. But over the summer I went home and I really just drilled into myself all of the technique and how to really be an awesome bass player, really make it sound crazy good. So I went through the Led Zeppelin catalog, John Paul Jones, learned a ton of his stuff, John Deacon from Queen, ton of his stuff, would play the Blue Oyster Cult and a bunch of different stuff. I would honestly put on anything I could and just listen for a bass line and try and teach it to myself. And also try and write a little bit too, just to expand my ability in playing and in all musical endeavors in regard to writing, playing, even just presentation. So I go back after the summer, not playing football anymore. I already quit. When I quit, they weren't very happy, but he said, are your parents okay with this? I said, yeah, they're okay with it because I'm going to do something else. So they're not too upset with it. Oh, whatever, fine. You want to do that? But because I haven't told you yet about how I quit my freshman year at the end of the year. And I will tell you that, once again, another time. I got a lot of stories to tell. It's funny that this is all just a digression from me talking about good times, but whatever. So I go back junior, senior apartments, very cool apartments, absolutely love those apartments. And they have this little open jam at the beginning of the year. Just bring your instrument, welcome to the music department. Come on up here and play a little something if you want to. So after a while I plug in and I start playing a little John Paul Jones, a little Lemon song almost. And I'm playing it with my fingers going the right way and I'm going fast. I'm doing like the little shreddy stuff. They're like, holy shit. They had no clue. Like all the instructors gathered around to watch what I was doing because they didn't have a lot of bass players in the department. They had maybe 2. Yeah, they did have 2. And they remembered me trying out last year. They remembered me from the previous year. So to see this different change and proficiency in the course of 3 months, it was, I guess, it was enough for them to let me try out for the actual scholarship groups. And I was able to be placed in scholarship groups my last 2 years I was there, my junior and senior year. My junior year was Mode 3. On my channel, you should watch the video Boom. That's an absolute classic, comes from Mode 3.
We go, and 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 we go.
DFX, have some videos on my channel. That was my senior year. That was a jazz funk fusion group. Got to do On Top as well, which, if you don't know, On Top was the band that I just put my heart and soul into. I really thought that we were going to make it. I'm going to talk a lot about On Top in the future, but we did some really awesome stuff. It was my introduction to actual music creation and being an entity within my own right and with others and having my own material. I'll get into all that. I want to get into Backside Jam. I want to get into everything from the beginning up until now. So that's where I'm going to leave this. The reason that I brought up all of this today was not just my fascination with relationships and how it just seems like I don't have a tangible grasp on who I was or what I've done because of people, but I have realized that when I meditate, I can put myself back into a place. Meditation and maybe some shrooms. Hey, whatever. It's legal here. I've just found myself traversing the depths of my mind in high school, in college, and picking out these memories that I haven't thought of since they happened, and the days and the times and the streets and the cities and, because there was a lot of weird times. There was a lot, going down different streets, going on walks during the fall and the winter and the summer and the spring. And, when I went home and when I'd come back and training for football, doing music, all these different things. I just think it's so fascinating. I think that's the beauty of life, that you get to have all these experiences. Anyway, I'd love to tell you some more stories. I think that some of them are really awesome, especially if you pair them up with Goodwill Punting.
Were you born in 94?
Yeah. You wear it when you go out? A shirt that says 1994 that clearly makes you not talk.
Which is on my channel. Boom, DFX, those are some things, even the On Top sketches and live shows from back then. That was really something in time. I'd like to probably put more content from high school. There's some good stuff that I'd like to put on there if I can get a hold of it. And I'm making my content now. So the fact I've always been creating something really comforts me, because it gives me a way to examine myself in time that's actually tangible. So my only goal really is to continue that. Anyway, hey, look, I told you a little bit about me. I want to tell you a little more about me, but that's a good story to start off with, because that kind of explains all the avenues that I can go from here. You know that I play football, you know that I've done it at different levels, different musical endeavors I've been part of. I've done a lot of weird stuff too. I mean, a lot of odd friend groups, doing odd things. When I left college, I took a hiatus from music, but I worked some pretty odd stuff down in Detroit that maybe I can get into. I'm not sure if I can get into it or not, but we'll see about that. Hey, maybe if I get some viewers, I'll get into it. That might be something interesting. I promise you that. It would be interesting. And then just kind of found my passion again. Was able to finally, after years of hard work, get the dealership running, Mastro Motors, on a large scale. It's absolutely gorgeous. I suggest that you come down. Once again, I'm plugging my dealership, but I digress. That's the famous line, isn't it? Hey, I think that's all I'm going to talk about in this specific episode right now, so thank you for watching. I guarantee I'll be uploading soon. It's good to have these little video diaries here. This is kind of piggybacking on what we spoke about today, but whatever. Hey, signing off. Start date 2023. Don Mastro.